Dude, he doesn't need a jet. He's gonna buy a jet card, right? He'll just get like, the NetJet pass. He's frugal with the 75 million. And only 75 million, man. How are you gonna take down the entire world with only 75 million bucks? You guys gotta raise more.
That's what I tell all the investors. I'm just like, guys, this is like just permission to play.
Totally,
Like,
dude.
I don't know what you're expecting to help come out of 75, right?
Yeah, do you expect anyone to know what Format does for only $75 million? It's like we have to get to the billions before people know what you guys do.
So actually, uh, on this topic, I have a question. I think I sent this to you the other day, but we should actually talk about it on here. How much free advertising do you think you've gotten from people just asking that question? Specifically Sean and I mean,
Dude, Sean has done more good for my business than I think he knows. Yeah.
Oh yeah, dude. Look, I'm the inventor or whatever. But yeah, I think I commented like, congrats on the raise. People immediately are like, oh, how much percentage of Ferment do you own? I'm like, I've never even fucking used the product. I got no idea what's going on. Um, Look, you guys obviously all know each other. I know some of you, but a lot of it's from like PFPs. So maybe explain what you guys all do and then what's the role here, kind of level set for the audience. It's your guys' podcast, so maybe they already probably know. But as a new listener, what do you guys typically talk about?
Generally, what we do is we just try to lift the hood a little bit on what does it mean to run a SaaS company, specifically in the e-com world. We just run our businesses so differently. Like Jeremiah's in this PE model, Zach is bootstrapping, and I'm raising a shitload of money. And so you just end up with like businesses that are run very differently, with very different like sort of plans and like how you have to operate the business when you are capitalized in different ways. Yeah, we're just like talking about what does it mean to operate a SaaS business. That's it. That's the goal.
Well, dude, in true operators fashion, I'm glad you guys told the name because you guys are keeping the production level exactly the same. Some people's videos aren't working. Rashab's like apparently in the middle of a coffee shop taking this, a ton of background noise. Uh, doesn't seem like we got too much of an agenda. So you guys fit right into the family, dude. I really appreciate you guys being part of the operators network.
I mean, hey, if you want to adopt us, uh, that would be cool. But we just don't have any sponsors though. So if you can find us some sponsors, I mean, maybe Ridge would like to sponsor. I'm not sure.
You guys need 40 to 50 sponsors. Just sponsor maxing. That's like the new podcast meta. I'm sure you guys all know TBPN. So Jordy worked at Ridge. I've known Jordy for 10 years at this point. Guy's awesome. John, friend of the brand. And what they've done is just like, yeah, we're going to be like unabashed, as many sponsors as possible, cram it in 3 hours a day, just blitzkrieg. And I think every podcast should be doing that. So always be plugging before you say whatever you're going to say on the podcast. Just be like, and make sure you use code Sean at checkout. Just really, really start milking it. But all right. So what do you guys want to talk about?
So we have a few topics. Um, I mean, like I think the main contention point right now is, and I kind of don't have like a dog in this fight either way because I think I sit right in the middle. Essentially, Jeremiah's like thoughts on pricing versus Rishab's thoughts on pricing, and then you had an Instagram or a LinkedIn post, maybe it was a Twitter poll, pretty much saying that anything under what is it, $100, it's a no brainer. Anything over $10,000, you consider it, and anything in between, it's like a hard no. So we'd love to like unpack that a little bit more, and then get Jeremiah
Or
shops.
wasn't it the question of like what's the number where it becomes a I have to think about it in depth? I think that was what the tweet was about.
Yeah. So I got pitched some, or you know what? I'm helping. There's a guy, Craig, he has like an AI consulting thing, right? So his whole thing is like he'll come into your business and he'll just like make sure all of your employees know how to use ChatGPT, right? Which like sounds simple, but you have to think about if you're a 400 person company and you have 7 people in accounts receivable or whatever, like what are the odds all of those people know what ChatGPT is and log in every day, right? So Craig will come into your organization. He has trainings, modules, tracking, the whole thing. He'll like set that up for you. And he's like, how much do I charge for it? And I'm like, it's one of those things where on like a monthly or yearly basis, like there's some number where it's like, of course, the ROI is so high that I'm never going to say no to it. And I think it depends on the size of your business and everything like that. But it's something like if someone told me I'd get like $1,200 to $1,500 a month, it's like I'm not even going to think about that. I'm just going to buy it, right? But the flip side is Rippling is like our payroll software. They quoted me like $45,000 a month or a year, and they want to raise it, so that's like $4,000, and I'm like, somewhere between those two numbers. $1,500 feels like it's incredibly easy, and I'll just add on every service possible. And then at $4,000, I'm like, what the fuck? I'm like, all you do is run payroll. What are you talking about? So there's some in between there. That's the delta. So I was just trying to get where everyone else's head's at on it. So I mean, when you guys go out there and price products, what do you think?
You want to know the truth? You want to know what I do? And this is
Yeah.
going to fucking come back and kill me, but I'm going to tell you the truth. The truth is, you pick a number and then you keep doubling it until people say no.
Yeah, it just maximum value extraction, right? And it obviously like matters what you guys do, right? So what's your number at right now? If I were to sign up for Firmat, jokes aside, I know what it does. If I wanted to pay for it, what does it cost me right now?
Now it actually starts at $500 a month, and then it just scales with usage.
So he said he just doubles it, but he actually cut it by 90% for the entry point.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, but like you said, you're going to tell the truth. You're not telling the truth right now. You're saying, "Oh, it starts at $500 a month." I don't think Ridge signs up for Firmat, and it's $500 a month. So, like, what's the range? Do you think?
I think the most likely outcome, because I think you publicly said you spend what, $7 million a month on Meta, right? But I only know your numbers based on what you've publicly said. So
Dude, that's a lot.
Is it just Meta is the most important thing? I spent $5
Meta
million.
is the place where most people start. It's what?
I spent $5 million last month on Meta.
Okay. So the reason why I start with there is and the reason I say the start with is the realistic way that our pricing works is it just follows how much you use us on Meta, because our cost scales with how much traffic it gets. That is the reason it scales. Depending on how Connor likes to test things, it would start, my guess is somewhere between $1,000 and $3,000 a month, and then it depends on how much he decides to scale it from there. And it would never go past. My guess for you guys is, even if we did nothing different relative to what we do with our other brands, it would not get past 10 to 15 a month. But at the point at which you are doing that, the amount that you are going to be making is going to be like 10x that.
Yeah. So this usage based model, like that's, as soon as somebody says that, I'm like, oh, I have to think way harder about if I want to do it or not, right? And then so Jay, how are you pricing stuff?
Flat rate feature pricing. So yeah, you can start. I mean, we have brands doing 100 million a year in revenue using our $19 a month plan. We lose money on those. So that's just the reality. But you're limited in what you can actually do with it, right? So like the way I see it is that allows you to have 3 questions a month. You can't connect to, you can't use the API. You can't do a bunch of other things. And so I look at it as, if that's all you care about, you're not going to value our technology enough to actually pay us for what we should be doing. So yeah, Sean, like you're probably I don't know what your price is, because you guys have multiple domains and all that kind of stuff. My guess is you're maybe paying us $500 to $1,000 a month for basically full access to all of our features across multiple stores. So
yeah, I'm trying to check right now, and it's one of those things where if you're in the app ecosystem, I'm just going to try to pay like it's a way different sell, right? So if Firmat's selling me, they're going to have to they're gonna have to take me to a sports game. They're gonna have to like sit down with my CMO, explain it or whatever. No, it's just like, hey, it's an app. You should just install it or whatever. And I think it is $500 a month is what I pay. Right.
okay,
So
yeah, that sounds about right. Like I don't think we have like one customer, I think, that pays us over $1,000 a month.
well, dude, name them. That's the whale. Who's this magical customer?
I'm not gonna name them.
Okay.
But they are a whale. They're a lot bigger than no offense. They are a lot bigger than Ridge though.
So your max ACV on a customer right now is $12,000 a year.
Yeah, I mean, I forget exactly what they're at, dude. It's just like it's a different game, right? Like we're playing a volume game. I mean, and Sean, I don't know if you've seen this. I took over Stamped, which actually somebody on your team was evaluating potentially using Stamped. So I took over Stamped, reviews platform. And we're implementing the same sort of pricing strategy there. So it's going to be flat rate for reviews. There's also a loyalty product. There's something called Repeats that we acquired as well. And Repeats very much focused on basically helping give the right information, or it's called Moment. So the idea is you put you contact a person at the right moment with the right piece of data. So trying to do like a cross sell or an upsell or whatever that is via email or SMS typically, and then kind of tying all those things together. So what I'm looking at is basically like building an ecosystem of data collecting tools that really empower some pretty incredible insights. And that's my goal. And so I actually do think there's a world in which like I would go to you, Sean, and say, hey, we have all of this really interesting data that can really change the way that you do business outside of just like what you're collecting from surveys. And I think that may be worth, call it 50K a year to you. Like that's ultimately what I'm trying to get to is that kind of a world.
Yeah. So there's usage-based pricing if it's delivering value to some sort of customer and you have to quantify that. Then there's like flat-based pricing for features, right? If it's going to be collecting surveys or reviews or whatever. And then I think what Jeremiah's saying is that there's a data business to be built on top of that, right? There's like, I mean, hedge funds hit me up all the time trying to get me to do calls to tell them how good meta ads are working that month, right? And like it's the same sort of thing. You could build a data collection tool there. Zach, how do you price your features? I think I pay for your tool as well.
Yeah, you guys pay. I think you guys are on like a old legacy plan. I think you pay us nothing.
Awesome.
But
I love this model.
yeah, no, it's really good. So we actually just changed our pricing, but so we're feature gated at tiers, and then our main like scaling metric now is like the number of ad accounts that you're tracking and then users on the platform. But up until a couple months ago, we were pretty much just users on the platform. So like seat based pricing.
Right. Yeah, so you're seat plus right now, right? So there's usage, there's feature, and then there's seat or seat plus, right? Jack, and I'm actually unfamiliar with your business. What's your business, man? You're on mute.
Jack's my head of marketing, and he like runs this podcast when his internet's working.
I hope Jack is not on Starlink after all the praise we were giving Starlink a couple weeks ago.
Oh man, yeah, you still can't hear him.
Yeah. But Sean, I'm actually curious. Okay, so like on the pricing side, obviously like you pay for tools that are all of the different possible ways of pricing, right? What's your take? Like what do you care about in that context?
What do I care about? Well, it's really like it's how much do you want to invest in the sales side of your business, right? So, if you just want to be a solo builder, right? So I look at like Lifetimely, what you guys did. Like if you just want to post on Twitter, tell people what you're doing, get reviews in the App Store and play that game, feature-based pricing, you'll have very quick adoption and probably very low churn. I mean, no offense. I've never thought about no commerce. It's just on my website. It just works. Never think about it. The team uses it to collect some sort of data and build some sort of reports. And I think it is like $500. So it just sits there. It's just part of the Shopify bill. It's actually really hard for me to find how much I'm paying for because I have to go to my Shopify bill and then actually pull that out and then see like how it actually bills. That's like the advantage of the permissionless ecosystem. Zach, with seat-based pricing, I haven't actually gone through the flow to see like how you sign up. But if I could just sign up by myself and then invite people like the Figma style, that's also like a no-brainer. It's like if I'm going to use the tool and get value out of it, just the performance creative team can do it. It's just when you get into any sort of usage-based, right? And like so you put format into this, Northbeam falls into this, where it's like if it's going to scale and I'm getting a lot of use out of it, it makes sense you want to capture some of that value, but it could be so expensive so fast, and then I could get punched in the face. SMS kind of falls into this, right? It's
Yeah, exactly,
usage-based.
and email too, right?
Yeah, and dude, my Klaviyo bill is like 40 or 50 grand a quarter, right? So it's like a serious bill that like I have to consider, but I'm not going to not send emails, right? So if you're trying to be like an email competitor or an SMS competitor, it totally works. The one thing we haven't talked about is just very aggressive or very expensive SaaS pricing, like an ERP. Like Fulfill is easily 10 grand a month, right? It's like this massive enterprise software that's sold. All you guys chose to avoid that.
I mean, the only way you can do that is you have to decide you're going to sell to the large enterprises first. Like, I just don't think you can reasonably grow a business at an extremely high price point and not start by selling to the largest brands. Like that's an impossible feat, essentially.
Yeah, you can't go to a $10 million a year Shopify store and be like, you need my $100,000 a year software, because they don't. We all know they don't, right?
Precisely.
But it seems like, in the future, like, are you guys worried about like AI vibe coders building the no commerces of the world, or whatever else? Are you guys worried about like just people flooding the app store with hundreds and hundreds of options? And that's one reason to go into the largest enterprise SaaS, is because it's just really hard to build fulfill. You have to hook up to a bunch of 3PLs. It takes like 4 years to get that going. And that's one reason to do it. Now, the downside is the people you're selling into, there's like 500 of them. Like it's a way smaller
Yeah,
pool.
yeah. There's yeah.
I actually think good pricing, or let's just call it like affordable pricing, or like pricing that isn't the main constrictor, actually positions you the best against sort of like vibe coders, because there is like a level of just like product love, and it really depends on like what your software does. Is your software a thing that you set up and then it does a singular thing for your business and you never touch it again? Or is your software like something that people log into like multiple times a day? Because then it also depends on like how often a bug is going to come up and then how quickly it can be resolved as well. And so like, even if you had, you've got like an army of vibe coders to like try to replace your entire like Shopify app bill, like the thing that's going to happen for like some of the apps is like, oh, this is going to work perfectly fine. There's going to be absolutely no issues. And then for like another sort of cohort of them, you're like, oh, this is horrific. We don't have like the capacity to account for sort of like the fragmentation of bugs and like use cases that exist even within a single organization, and like it still be useful in a day-to-day process. I honestly think in a lot of ways, like a lot of the businesses that would have been disrupted from these types of things would have already been disrupted from like Zapier or Make. I don't think that like putting a wrapper around some of these like very specific like logic type things like makes an inherent like larger threat.
Yeah. Sean, I guess I'm curious how you think about this, given like, for better or for worse, you publicly like went off of Klaviyo and went back on, right? And
Yeah.
and there is like a team that built that other software, and that is like the equivalent, probably actually better than the vibe coded equivalent that would happen in the future. And like, I think that set of trades, and I mean, like you've actually experienced this direct. Like I've actually never experienced it, but I'm curious how you think about that.
Yeah. Look, and let's talk about that. So Klaviyo has gotten better as terms of like pricing and people, but like going into the IPO, they were horrible to deal with, right? So kudos to the team to like fixing it, but like they had to face, and this is going to tie to the second point of the podcast, is e-commerce shrinking or not, right? So that's the second point of the podcast. But imagine if you're Klaviyo, you raise all this fucking money, you're going to IPO, you totally missed SMS. Like for some reason, they were 3 years behind SMS. They were just like, we're just going to get really good at email. And for, how I understand email is that they're actually just built on Twilio, like, or SendGrid or whatever. Like they're on somebody else, and they're just kind of like a interface and like best practices on top of that. And you've hit peak saturation. I mean, like the numbers are outstanding. They have like 90% of Shopify Plus merchants or something, right? Like they have this massive, like they've totally eaten up the TAM, and they're going to IPO. And then if you IPO, you have to show that you can grow, right? So the way they're going to grow is they're going to start charging people more money. And they were just, I mean, they were canceling discounts. They were like, my bill was going to set to like go up 50% or whatever. And this is probably me hoping the technology was more advanced than it was, trying to go to other competitors in the space. I'm like, how come there isn't a $500 or $1,000 a month solution on top of this? And so I was probably just more excited than I should have been. I should have taken it more carefully, but I was like, how could you fuck up email? We've been sending emails for 30 years. It's like, how can it be so bad? That tool I went to was not ready for the light of day. I had to migrate there, then migrate back. And I'm totally, I'll eat as much crow as possible. I've done this a bunch of times with a bunch of shit. I tried to leave Shopify once, right? So Klaviyo took me back. They've gotten way better at pricing. I think they've figured out that they can cross sell merchants in SMS. And I think they're finding success with like the restaurant segment or whatever. But it looked really dark there for a second. Like they had an IPO that like was getting crushed like 2022, 2023. And yeah, and their only solution was to raise prices. So anyway, maybe in the future of AI, it'll be easier to vibe code. But that's why I go back to that enterprise thing. Because if you're selling APIs and connections, it's just like, that's the mode, right? Like if you're, go ahead, Jay.
I was say I think brand matters too, right? Because the other piece of this is the like having experts who know what they're doing helping you, like a vibe coder, or even just like hiring a software engineer to be like, hey, come in, build these features for me. They're not going to be an expert that's going to help level you up on how to use those things. You actually have to then have that expertise in your team. And AI helps with that a little bit, but you're always going to be, as long as the price makes sense, you're actually always going to be better off working with people that are experts on these things, who are constantly leveling themselves up, as opposed to trying to do that on your own. Like we all outsource things, right? Because it's hard to be the expert at everything.
I do worry about like whether ecom is going through, like ecom itself and SaaS of ecom is going through consolidation, which basically means that TAM is shrinking, which is bad for everybody, right? And especially bad given the amount that I've raised, right? Just to say the words out loud. Like I don't, just for everybody, just to be very clear about my view, I'm worried about it, and it is not in my interest for this to be true. Okay, I want to be super clear so this doesn't get mistaken. You like basically got this thing to have a lot of attention and get people to chime in, right? So like you're trying to get people to share data to understand what's true about the market. I guess I'm curious on two fronts. One is what makes you curious, and then the second is what is your read, not only from what people publicly shared, but from like the private groups that you're in?
Yeah. Well, only the paranoid survive. So you should definitely stay paranoid about what's happening in your market. And there is a solution to this, but it's not in their best interest to share it, right? And that is Shopify to share same store year over year sales growth. They will never share that because they're a public company and they want to make it seem like they're growing and they're strong, right? So talk about like not acting in your best interest. It's like, yeah, dude, Shopify could just put an end to this. We could stop speculating. They could just be like, no, stores are doing fine. Here's the data. They do report on GMV growth and they report on, you know, the number of new merchants they've added, or at least they highlight the biggest ones. And it's one of those things where it's like, how much do you believe in Shopify's sales engine to convert legacy businesses over to Shopify? I think they do a pretty fucking good job of it, right? There's still a lot of the websites that are not built on Shopify that they're taking over. And without a doubt, we went through an e-commerce recession. There's just data that shows that like e-commerce penetration grew from whatever 12% to 15% to 17%, and then it went back down to like 15, and then it's like slowly going back up. Change those percentages to be accurate, but like we could take a screenshot. The Fed releases this data, like e-commerce penetration of percentage of retail. So we can debate if there was a like recession in terms of like how it's measured on like the global GDP or national GDP level. But inside of our sector, there definitely was that like less transactions were happening. Nobody can convince me otherwise. Now, that doesn't mean that you're destined to lose, right? Like Ridge has grown every single year since we started this business, right? And I know people who could start a business last year doing $20 million this year. Like there's all those success stories, but you have to look at like in aggregate, there was less transactions happening. That brings us to today. And the main point in contention was, hey, here's the built with data showing top stores in the top whatever 10,000 that are built on Shopify, and it's lower than it has been, right? So then the debate is like, is the data wrong or what's happening? There's a whole other vector we're not going to talk about that is like, is the open web shrinking? I spent $1 million on an open web website that had like affiliate links and SEO. I gave that away earlier this year because I think the open web is actually dead. But we're not going to talk about that. What we're going to talk about is e-commerce. Look, I think the read is it's been the hardest 5 years of e-commerce ever. Like if you could go back to 2009 and 2009 to 2019, easy, nothing happened. You know what I mean? Like more people got iPhones and they bought stuff on the internet. Like, and then you think COVID to euphoria in 2021 to a war in Ukraine to like the whole depression from 2022 to 2023 to iOS 14 was in there to all of these fucking things happened. What we've seen is that every year there's less people showing up to e-commerce events, but basically it peaked in 2021. Every year there's less people. Every year there's less new merchants. Every year there's less more like there's less people talking on social, there's less people wanting to join groups, more and more people kind of go and consolidate or belly up. Like we didn't even talk about like Thrasio was a thing. You know, they raised billions of dollars and now they're not a thing anymore. Like it is silly to say that like, oh, everything's fine. Obviously it hasn't been. We can look at all of these things. It's like we have such short-term memory that all these things have happened. Anyway, to end the monologue, your question was, how are the vibes? I would say that people I talk to right now are pretty resilient and they're pretty stoked that like, look, we're recording this in July 2025. So you've survived the election of Donald Trump, you survived the tariffs, you survived everything that came before and everything that came after, wars in Gaza, war in Ukraine, whatever. You're looking right now, you're like, yeah, it looks pretty good. Temu got killed, right? Temu's not running ads anymore. Like we're all feel pretty excited. So I would say that we are at to take it back to the tech bubble, we're probably in 2002 of the tech bubble. So we're post peak and we're in the rebuilding stage. That's what I think.
Okay, I was just going to ask, like you guys in specific, one of the things that I'm noticing you're doing, and this is outside looking in, I have no idea, but outside looking in, it looks like you're adding products at like a faster clip than you ever have been. And what that, as an outside looking in person, what that makes me think is like, okay, the merchants are also like consolidating product spaces. So like as a merchant, it is better for me to be getting more categories to be bought from me because, and this goes to your like 15, 17, 19, like whatever the numbers are, it's not going to be 100, right? Like we can kind of agree that retail e-commerce is never going to be 100% of retail. And so then there's like this consumer TAM question of like, as a merchant, what is the way to do this? Would it be a fair thing to say that like there is consolidation happening on the product category level if you're an e-com merchant, because you and that is part of why you're seeing people expand into new product categories and competing across product categories? It's happening in SaaS, just to say it out loud, right?
Yeah, and I talked to Jacques from Raindrop today. So love Raindrop. They make great videos. They work with Dr. Squatch and Native, and then they had to make the choice to only work with Native, and that's because when they started. Jacques said this. He's like, Dr. Squatch was just doing bar soap and Native was just doing deodorant. But then over the past 10 years, they each try to take up more and more of the aisle. And then Native tries to go after men and Dr. Squatch tries to go after women. And then they are just, instead of rubbing elbows, they're just fist fighting for space and target, right? And yeah, that's the natural path of a brand. It's like we're all going to keep expanding. Dude, it happens in SaaS all the time. I was talking to one of my SaaS merchants, and they're getting into returns, and it's in a category you never think they would get into returns, right? But I'm like, yeah, because Loop built a great business with a premium price. If I was doing SaaS, I would do returns too. I'm like, that's the first thing I'd go after, right? But also I don't like how expensive they are. But then, yeah, going back to it, Ridge has been able to grow because of our expansion in new product categories. If I was trying to sell more wallets every year, like my wallet business is flat year over year, but my ring business has done 8 figures in the first half of the year. And it's like, that's the future of, I think, more brands having standalone product categories that you can run different ads around and just take up more of that land share. So it's definitely, the room is pretty big. I don't think it's getting much bigger. So you have to kind of just make your own space in it.
One thing that's really interesting, going back to your point, Sean, about 2020 to present, basically, and the challenge there. If you look at internet adoption in the US, it really hasn't changed since 2020. And I actually think that's a big piece of this. So in terms of like the TAM expanding, we had, from the year 2000 to 2020, there's a massive growth in internet usage. From 2010 to 2020, there's a massive growth in smartphone usage. And even I was looking at one number that was saying total time spent online is only 2% higher now than it was in 2020. And who knows, like that may even go down, like per person time spent online. That may even go down over time. And so then I think you look at that paired with e-commerce sales being pulled forward so much from COVID. I think that that could explain a lot of the bumpiness that we've seen here, right? Where it's like you're really not seeing expansion of people using the internet, and also like we really pulled forward a lot of what you would expect the e-commerce kind of growth trend to be, and probably that trend can't continue at the same rate that it was in terms of like e-commerce driving percentage of sales without like some pretty meaningful innovation, which AI may actually help with that. But I do think that's probably a big piece of what we're seeing over the last 5 years.
Totally. I mean, Amazon doesn't really grow e-commerce sales anymore, right? Like they're in the value extraction point of view. They make all of their profit from their ads. Look at their S1 or their quarterly filings. Their profit number is exactly how much they charge in ads. Like those things are like one in one, right? Everything else is just break even to make AWS work or whatever else. And then people point to China. China's at probably triple the e-commerce penetration rate as us, but they didn't get there without a lot of bloodshed, right? Like they have malls too, and they have a very large, um, you know, real estate bubble. Where like they have commercial real estate that needs to have people coming in and shopping, and that was a knife fight. And a lot of times, like in America, we think of China as like being like one party, one system moving in one direction. But no, there's people in there with different competing priorities. It's just like every fucking thing else, right? So one, people like shopping in malls. Like, I mean, the Century City Mall in LA is packed every single day with people hanging out outside, right? The third thing is there's a lot of constituencies that want to protect retail stores, right? The closing of de minimis, we talk about how great it is for American e-com merchants. You know who wants that? It's Gap, because like Gap, Old Navy, they're paying duties to bring their shit in, and Temu isn't, right? So that's just like the other thing to think about is like there's some sort of protectionary nature of retail employees, commercial real estate, the whole thing. So we're never going to get to 50% e-commerce penetration. We probably get to 20, right? And it probably gets there by the end of the decade. That's the reality of what we're talking about.
Yeah, exactly. Like it just is not going to grow at the rate that it did previously. And yeah, so there will be some expansion, but yeah, if you want to grow 50% year over year, probably the only way you're going to do that is by selling different products than what you've been selling in the past.
Well, isn't part of this also just the probably median age of an e-commerce native business, right? Like Sean, like you guys didn't start selling wallets. At least I don't think you didn't start selling wallets like out this back of your truck, and then you're like, oh, we're going to take this thing online. But you started it online, meaning you started as like a single product. And I think a lot of, let's call it like the people that rode the wave of e-commerce were, people who are building businesses like online first. Um, and so like as those businesses age, like you said, like there's only so many wallets that you can sell. And so is it not just like your business is aging in the same way that like if it was like 35 years ago and like you first started selling wallets and then you started selling backpacks or like whatever it was, I think like every business does this. Like it's not an e-commerce specific thing that you go to like multi-product. It's like the difference between being a brand versus being like a widget or like a utility type product.
Totally. And we have this debate at Ridge all the time. So we have 10 million customers in our Shopify account, right? So like, I mean, depending on who you guys are, that either sounds like a lot or it sounds like a little, but 10 million customers have bought from us through Shopify. What we talk about internally is like, okay, what percentage of Facebook active users that are guys that are between 18 and 40 is that 10 million? And then where do they fall into like on economic brackets, right? Like what's their income, whatever. You start looking at it, you're like, oh shit, do we have half of all people who buy on Facebook? Like it just like the TAM of wallets on Earth is $10 billion a year or something. And we do like $100 million a year just in wallet sales, right? So we have 1% of that global wallet market. Now in America, we probably have 2 or 3% of the global wallet market or the national wallet market. And it's like, how much bigger can I have of a wallet market, right? In consumer goods, monopolies have to be below 20%, right? Coca-Cola, the best-selling drink of all time, has 20% of the soft drink market. We're not Google. We're not going to have 90% of search or Uber, 90% of rideshare. So you're totally right. It's just like you reach a saturation point. And our solution is to launch new products because I also have 2% of the men's wedding ring market. So I crush that market too. Then I move on to tech products or whatever else. I'm just trying to keep getting more of these, 1 to 2% mini monopolies. But to the original thesis, yes, a lot of brands have matured and reached a solid state, right? You put us in there, you put Hexclad in there, right? These are brands that are worth hundreds of millions of dollars, doing tons of fucking revenue and profit. You would expect growth to slow down to some point unless they have a reason to keep growing, which is new product expansion. That is great. Like we pass whatever great filter. I think the great filter is $50 million a year. There's a lot of people who started maybe 2018, 2019 or in COVID and have not been able to reach escape velocity. And then every new thing kind of just takes a little bit more people off. It's not like it's not like a meteor hit e-commerce, right? Like all the dinosaurs didn't die in one day, but it's like every year, like the temperature gets a little bit higher in the ocean and just a couple more things die. I'm getting a lot of nods, so I'll let you guys talk for a bit.
I think like at least what we're seeing in our data, which I did not publicly share on Twitter, is that it is a tale of two cities. Like there's the have and the have-nots, which is actually directly reflective of this operating behavior. There's a bunch of people who are shrinking, and there's a bunch of people who are growing, which is not surprising. Like that is what happens at the as you get to maturity of any given industry. You can't have everyone growing. Like it is yeah, like the physics doesn't work. The physics of business does not work that way. I think what's interesting right now is I think that there is more consolidation at a higher rate than one would expect, because I think that the haves have so much more leverage than the have-nots. And I think that that leverage is getting even higher over time. Like I guess I'm curious from your standpoint, Sean, like when you talk to other merchants who are not as big, so let's say $30 million brands, like relative to the leverage you have, whether it's supply, like vendor negotiations, whether it's distribution negotiations, like literally in every way, don't you think that that leverage has increased like as time has gone on?
Totally. And look, it could be unfair because I also happen to like tweet on the internet. So sometimes people want to do more additional favors for me because of that. So like even discounting that, like the it goes from like really subtle things like Meta. If I have a problem, I can talk to the highest level people at Meta. Like I'm talking like I could talk to the guy who reports into the C-suite, right? I could bug that guy with an idea I have, right? And then they'll actually get that done. And partly that could be because of like internet influence, or partly it's like, oh shit, we want to make sure these people are spending more money with us, right? But then there's also just like, yeah, I get cheaper USPS rates than you guys, right? Because I have way more package volume, right? I can negotiate with payment processing rates or whatever, right? Like I can get better Klaviyo contracts because whatever, right? So there is more leverage happening there. The other thing is just the leverage of having a customer base, right? Like we can sell things into our customer base. It just makes it's like our like it's just a little more juiced. Everything we do is a little bit more juiced, right? So if you're $30 million, here's typically what I talk to somebody who has $30 million business. They're like, oh my god, I'm running out of money. that's most $30 million businesses I talk to, right? There's something that's like broken in their system, or like there's just a lot of landmines that happen, right? It's like, oh hey, I bet the farm on this product launch and it didn't go the way I expected, right? We see that happen all the time, right? Or I was really counting on X, Y, or Z thing to happen and it didn't happen. And like, or I had this big bill come out of nowhere, or I'm getting sued. Like when you're $30 million, you feel rich because you have 30 million, you see Shopify every single day, but you're actually only making maybe like 600K a year. That is like the reality if you own a $30 million a year e-commerce business. There's nothing wrong with making 600 grand a year. That's fucking awesome. But there's actually, when you could get sued and it could cost you $2 million, it's like it could fuck everything up. So anyway, typically when I talk to $30 million a year merchants, they're basically running out of money and they're like trying to figure out ways to fix that. And that's also probably a secondary effect here is there's less brand startups. There's actually, I'm going to explain the data real quick. There's a big pull down in the number of top sites on Built With that are built on Shopify. What I actually think is happening is we're seeing the same drop off we always do. Every year, 1% of people go bankrupt, right? Or fold up shop. But traditionally 1.5 people were getting VC funding and filling in the gap. So there's more new entrants. And like, so you get an artificial growth curve, right? Like we have more people coming in, we have churn and it's going like this, but now there's no new people coming in. Like your acquisition falls off a cliff and that makes this sudden drop where it's like, oh no, like we're seeing normal shrinkage rates, probably, maybe it's slightly accelerated, but there's nobody coming in. So that's what I think is happening, guys. Zach, go to you.
I mean, anecdotally, if someone used to come to me and say, I'm thinking about starting a Shopify business, let's call it like 36 or like 48 months ago, I'm like, oh yeah, like you definitely should. I would say like I don't give that advice as much anymore, or I'm not as excited, like I'm not as blindly like, oh, like just go and try it as I once was. Especially if someone's like, I'm gonna bootstrap this thing, or I have like this like idea for a product. And also like being someone who is like pretty green, let's say. And so like I think you're 100% right. Like I've stopped saying to people that like have an idea, be like, well, I don't know, like maybe do something else. Because like I don't think that you're cut out for this. Like it used to be the business where like if you weren't cut out for something super hard, you could go and do it.
Totally, dude. I was
You know,
stupid.
like, I remember when I first started running meta ads, like you, it was literally like putting $1 in and like taking 2 or 3 out. Like it, and it would work, and it was just like it didn't stop working, and it was like great. Like that doesn't exist anymore. So like, yeah, I do think that some of the, I don't think that the opportunity is as wide as it once was for as many people.
Yeah, and we see this happen in every single industry, right? I'm sure people in like 2004 were like, I'm before vibe coding. They're like, yeah, I'm just gonna work with a little widget, and then that widget gets bought for millions of dollars, right? Like specialized knowledge starts to win very much in e-commerce. Like if someone's like, oh, I'm thinking about making a product, I'd be like, well, here's what you got to do. Go work at an agency business and have them teach you everything for 2 years. Then go work at a brand, have them teach you everything for 2 years. Then talk to me about launching your thing, right? It's like it requires a level of specialty knowledge. And anyway, yeah. We'll go to Jay. What's up, Jay?
I was just thinking the interesting piece too. I know like some people don't like to talk about CPMs in ads, but like I actually think that's just a massive piece of this. Is I mean, Meta in 2012 was dirt cheap to get somebody to look at an ad and click on the ad, and then some percentage of people are going to buy after they click. That's just how it works. And now it's just like the cost of failure is so high compared to what it was in the past. Like it takes more money to figure out how to optimize it. Like for you, Sean, you're at a point where you've been doing this for so long. It's clearly a well-oiled machine to be able to spend $5 million a month in Meta. But for somebody just starting out, like even if you're good at it, you don't necessarily know what value props are going to resonate. You don't know which creative is going to be good. Like there's so many factors that are so expensive to try to solve for versus what it would have cost you 10 years ago.
Totally. I brought this up years ago. I'm like, look, Mark Zuckerberg's not God. Like Facebook isn't God. Like it's a publicly traded company that has to show revenue increasing every single year, right? And they've added every human on earth to their platform. So what are they gonna do, right? Like you can increase ad load, you can increase screen time, you can increase users. Like if you can't do those things, you can increase price. That is the only way to get more revenue out of this business. And dude, hats off to them. They've actually done a great job increasing screen time, increasing ad load, like increasing users, right? Like I think they have WhatsApp ads now. Threads is a brand new thing. Like they've been able to do that. They have the best ads engine on earth. They will increase prices over time. Going back to like, there's just too much at stake. Dude, people try to like compete head to head with Ridge all the time. The first thing I tell them is don't sell wallets. It's like I'm not trying to protect my own game here. It's a horrible business, dude. Dr. Squash gets bought for 1.5 billion. Grunes is worth $500 million. It's like sell something that people use every day that runs out. That's the best advice to anybody getting into this space. And then if you do want to compete with me, going back to Zach's point about specialty knowledge, I spent $150,000 yesterday at a 2x MER, right? So it's just like every single day, I'm going to run really low to the ground. I still talk to founders who are like, I'm going to spend, I want to spend $100,000 and make $1 million in sales. I'm like, me too, dude. Like that sounds like the lottery, brother. Like I'd love to play that game. And then the last point about the capital being taken out of the system. I talked to a founder yesterday. She's really nice. She raised a bunch of money. It's a shoe company. She she reaches out because she wants to talk about meta ads, and I'm like, cool. Well, how are your meta ads going? She's like, look, we can't spend any money. I'm like, well, what's your budget? She's like $50,000 a month, and I'm like, she's like, every agency I go to says they can do it, but then it just they can only spend 20,000 on my CAC targets. And my advice to her, and this is advice to everybody listening, is I'm like, do your own ads. I'm like $50,000 a month. I'm like, I could run that account. I'm like, ads are easy now. I'm like, I could spend $1 million a month, right? It's like you're paying someone to give you horrible performance on the most important thing about your business, which is distribution right now, right? It's like you used to think it was product, you used to think it was brand, you used to think it was all these things. I'm like, it is just getting distribution. I don't care if you're an influencer who posts or you have to run ads or you're fucking going door to door. It's just about distribution, right? So anyway, that's kind of together. There's no money now, and those people are the ones that are kind of drying up if they never actually learned ads or learned that stuff.
I think like on the no money point, for what it's worth, I think Taylor has a really good point about this. Like Jeremiah and I were talking to him yesterday, and like the cost of capital for everybody has gone up over the last 3 years between both debt and equity. And when the cost of capital goes up, like everything about how you need to think about running your business has to change by definition. And the only thing you can hope for is that the cost of capital goes down next year, which there's like reasons to believe that that'll happen. But yeah, like people are often not fully baking in the cost of capital for running their business.
Right. And, we have a bunch of tech nerds listening who probably did not specialize in finance, but like there's the risk-free rate of return, which is what the government gives you for your money, right? And in 2021, it was 0%. So if I wanted to buy government treasuries, I got no money back, right? I think the actual rate was 0. If you look at today, the government gives me 5%. I could open up a Robinhood account and get 5% free money every year. So the investment portfolio has to change. Either your valuation has to come down, right? Or your outcome has to be so much better, right? That you can overcome that risk-free rate. Because what was a good investment in 2021 has to be a good investment plus a minimum of 5%, right? Which is just really, really fucking hard to do, right? And nobody wants to lower their valuations because I'm telling you right now, if you want to raise at 0.5x revenue, there's somebody out there to give you money, right? But if you want to raise at 3x revenue, nobody's going to give you money, and it's because of that cost of capital piece. Yeah, and because of that, there's less money going into the ecosystem. Everything's been really expensive. I don't think a lot of people are trying to bootstrap e-commerce brands now. Like we're post-COVID, nobody's thinking about doing that. So I think that explains the big dive in e-commerce stores. But going back to you guys, you have to service us, right? Like you guys make all your money talking to e-commerce merchants. So how are you dealing with less of us being around?
It's the same thing ultimately, right? Like less customers, less money to be made, more hard decisions to be made. I don't know. It's like, yeah, it's just a cycle. And then I'm sure, things might turn around in a year and then we all start spending too much money again and just end up in the same place 5 years from now.
My number one focus of 2025 is to like not focus on e-commerce customers. I love the e-commerce community. You guys are the worst customers in the entire world.
Yeah, true.
Like 100%. But you're really good to start with because like you guys all try everything once. And you don't ask many questions, but like over like a time, like any sort of time horizon, yeah, it's a pretty brutal industry to like have as your core customer.
Yeah, well, and let's unpack that. Like people to decision maker in e-commerce, you can directly talk to the CEO, right? Like that like someone with a budget of $100 million a year will talk to you immediately. Like they'll be the first people to respond, right? And it's because it's urgency. It's typically found around like that's why they're so quick to adopt and so quick to try. So it's the absolute best to launch a new product into because you'll get very fast adoption, very fast signal. Try emailing anyone at LVMH. Okay. Like it's in consumer, they have ads, like they have tech products, the whole thing. Try to get a response. You will end up getting like the junior assistant to the VP of blank, right? And like getting a meeting is going to take you 6 months. So it's like selling into those enterprise accounts that are founder led or whatever, just incredibly hard. Try to sell SaaS to Google. Like you're going to have 4 meetings about the meeting you're about to have, right? And I love Meta. Like we did a podcast at Meta's event. There was no joke 4 meetings about doing the podcast. And it's like, we're just going to show up and do the podcast, right? But like try to sell SaaS into them, right? It's the exact same thing. So we are horrible customers. We're incredibly cheap. We're fast to churn. And if we feel slightly wronged in any way, we immediately tell all of our friends about it, right? Like it's a very gossipy group of people. So Zach, I think you're super smart trying to go after anybody else. What pockets of the industry of the world are you looking at?
So like my biggest focuses right now are apps and gaming, like mobile apps and gaming. Those are actually like some of like the best customers. They're probably some of the most like willing to test and like really intelligent people. The last election cycle, we had like a lot of success with political advertisers and like agencies running like a lot of political spend. And so like I want to like ramp that up like once primaries start a little bit more and just get like more penetration there. And then like the other focus for me right now is like we started because I wanted a Pinterest for ads. Like I just wanted it for myself, built like a little Chrome extension. We've kind of like now transitioned to a platform company. I think over the next like 12 to 24 months, like a lot of my personal focus will becoming like a data company. And so I'm looking at like a lot of really interesting things that we can start doing with our data, and like the technology that we use to collect the data that we collect, and like other areas of data that we can start collecting. Like an example is like counterfeit product type stuff, and being able to detect counterfeit products and things like that. And so, yeah, that's like kind of like my focus. I mean, I still like building our product, but I think the business focus, like it's weird. It's like, it's almost like we have this like product that's going to create a bunch of sawdust, and I need to keep sharpening the blade so we can keep cutting boards so we have more sawdust. And like, but I'm really, really focused on the sawdust.
Yeah, that's interesting. Y- Bringing up apps gaming, those people are psychopaths. Like they come from
We're
the
insane.
affiliate space. Yeah, they are like the quants of the industry. They look for like, point like 1.101x ROAS, and they just spend like crazy. Like they really have that shit figured out. So
Well, and they don't have the constraints of e-commerce businesses, right? Like they don't have to worry about their warehouse being empty or a shipment on a boat. And so it's like when you have all that excess like mind space, you can just like autistically obsess about like ads, performance, and growth.
yeah, it's the beauty of digital products. And before we move off of you, Zach, you brought up detecting counterfeits. I assume what you're doing is because you hooked up to all these different ad accounts, you can see like ad accounts that might launch like counterfeit goods across them. Maybe that's what you're talking about. Dude, you know what you should do? Hook up to a bunch of different ad accounts and then sell ad account insurance. Like $10 a month. And it's like, hey, if your ad account gets hacked or like people launch fake ads or whatever, like we will make sure you get your money back from Meta. That's a great SaaS product. Pitching you right now. Think about it. All right, Jay, how are you gonna fix it? We're dealing with e-commerce merchants dying. What,
Dude,
what are you gonna
I'm
do?
I'm going all in, doubling down on supporting e-commerce merchants. So, low pricing, flat rates, trying to leverage data to build industry insight, all that kind of stuff. So, yeah, that's my approach. I'm gonna die with the merchant if necessary.
Dude, Jeremiah, pure of heart, bro. I appreciate that. All right, Rashab, you got the biggest balance sheet here. What the hell are you gonna do?
I'll be honest. I my view is like Shopify and Klaviyo did not become big because companies like Ridge existed. Um, and there's something underneath that they became big when Ridge became big. Like with you, right? And I think there are lots of lessons in that story. Instead of like looking at today, looking at what was true when they were trying to grow super fast. That's the hard thing is like Shopify did not like start by saying like, oh, I'm going to go after like Demandware's business, right? Like they didn't do that. Like in fact, they're only doing that now. Like you don't get big outcomes necessarily uh by like sort of quote unquote like starting at the top all the time. And I think this is like a dynamic enough industry where you you want to just like create systems that when something starts to grow, like your system captures it. I don't have like a great direct answer, but like Intel didn't become big because they like were like, oh yeah, we're selling memory and like this is a great business. They had like a factory that was responsive. Have you read Only the Paranoid Survive?
No.
That is how I think about running the business, which is like they had a factory that was responsive to the fact that like memory sales were going down, but CPO sales were going up. And then they saw this in the 80s, and then that made the like Intel Inside movement and like made the business become like very big. I am thinking more about like how do I put up engines for our company that like can respond to those types of things um in like a fast enough pace that we can like find these inflection points to grow the business. So
Yeah, I think like if I could mirror back what you're saying, Shopify did not go after Demandware. They wanted to have a monopoly on mom and pop e-commerce merchants, right? Which was a very small bit. Like nobody cared. Like nobody was going to service these people, right? But they actually built a monopoly, and then they were able to grow that monopoly as that market grew, right? And I think a lot of times people think about having a big idea is the way to win. Like, I'm gonna have the biggest idea. Like, I'm gonna do something crazy, raise a ton of money, and go after this giant idea. Or they're like, I'm gonna do exactly what they're doing, and then I'm gonna try to copy that. Right? You can win doing both of those things, but I think having trying to be a monopoly in an incredibly small market actually is incredibly underrated. Like, I'm just going to be the number one blank, right? The smallest idea you could possibly think of, but actually get 100% market share, because then you can take that loyalty and then either the market grows or you move to other things, right? I think Klaviyo benefited from that. Shopify benefited from that. Dude, Tesla had a monopoly on electric vehicles when nobody wanted one. You know what I mean? Like, they're the only name in town. Eventually people wanted them, right? And they were able to actually build a great thing. So, all right, guys, it was a good pod.
Yeah,
Anything else you guys want to hit on?
I appreciate you coming on. It's been fun.
No, this was amazing, dude. This was super fun. Yeah, thanks for doing it.
Of course. Look, I appreciate it, Jack. Sorry we weren't able to talk. I hope you're still there. And then who do I send the invoice to? So it's $100,000 per appearance. So do you guys just split that?
You can send that to Jack.
Oh,
Oh,
Yeah,
beautiful.
exactly.
All right, guys. Appreciate
All right,
you.
man.
Goodbye.
Have a good one.
Yeah, guys,
Bye.
have a good one.